2018 was one of the worst years for movies we've ever seen. It gave us really big, dumb explosions and nothing but just mindless violence. No, you were buying this, are you? Yeah, I've noticed on YouTube, typically whenever people do a best of the year list and a worst of the year list, when they do the worst of the year list, they like to come in here and pretend like the best of the year list didn't happen, and they just say that everything's terrible. And I get it, it's a funny joke, but yeah, I can't bring myself to do that because, as you guys saw yesterday when we did the best of the year list, last year was a really damn good year for movies. I can't lie. So, even though I do feel like we still need to do a worst of the year list, before we get into that, let's just take a brief moment to just reflect on how good 2018 was.
Misty watercolor memories of the way.
And moment over. Alright, time to look at the films that made those movies look really damn good by comparison. These are my 10 worst movies of 2018. It's about to get all kinds of messy in here.
Number 10, Cloverfield Paradox. Yeah, remember this? Remember how the Cloverfield franchise, one of the most surprising series of films we've seen over the past decade, just suddenly announced, hey, we have a third film and it's available now. Remember how stunned we all were by that? You probably don't, because this film was so bad we tried to scrub it from our brains as hard as we could. The story is a half-hour-long Twilight Zone episode stretched out for feature-length time, and after about half an hour you realize, oh, you really didn't have anything for this. And speaking personally, what I hated the most about this is that they tried to explain the other Cloverfield movies, which didn't need explaining, and actually kind of made them worse. I loved the first Cloverfield film, and 10 Cloverfield Lane was an amazing surprise. And this movie now leaves a sour taste in my mouth when I think about them. Honestly, this would have been way higher on my list if it weren't for the fact that this went direct to Netflix, so hey, at least I didn't have to leave the house or really pay anything extra for it. So it had that going for it. Number 9, Death Wish. This movie was panned across the board when it came out, so I can't lie. When I went into this movie, I kind of expected it to be bad. And about half of it was. But the other half of it was just bland toast. It was just really boring. It feels like they were making a truly astonishingly bad film, and then they got scared and they backed off, so then they were just making a nah, bad film. It's so boring at times that you could easily just take a nap through it and not miss a thing. Which is appropriate because I'm pretty sure that Bruce Willis was actually doing that throughout this entire movie. Listen, we've all criticized Bruce Willis over the years for just not caring anymore in his performances, and there is nowhere that's more obvious than here. His expression in every scene is basically, so when is lunch? I kid you not. In this movie, he plays a man who loses his wife and is driven to become a mad vigilante because of it, and whenever he has to think about his wife, they cut away to keep Willis from having to show emotions. Even the editors knew, oh, this isn't going to work. Number 8, Life of the Party. Now, on to the complete opposite of Death Wish, which had no acting. We have only acting. What I mean by that is that this film very clearly either didn't have a script, or it did have a script, and that script was just huge blank pages that said, Melissa McCarthy does something in this scene. We don't know what, but she'll figure it out. Now, don't get me wrong, Melissa McCarthy is a great actress, and this year the Academy is even acknowledging what she can do when she's given a really well-written drama. But you can't make a movie that's just her improvising. Seriously, it is so clear that they just said, alright Melissa, just do whatever you want. And because of that, you're left with a movie that has a lazy plot where nothing is thought out. I'm not kidding you, the solution at the end of this film is just invented right there on the spot. And almost all of the dialogue is just McCarthy commenting on what is happening. She will talk for 3 minutes about sitting down in a chair. It's some of the worst improvising I've ever seen, and they just keep going with it. Again, I think McCarthy is a great actress, but there's a reason the film she made right after this one was called Can You Ever Forgive Me? Maybe one day, but I'm not there yet. Number 7, 50 Shades Freed. Listen, I've seen every single one of these movies now. Wouldn't recommend it. But I'll be real with you, this one isn't as bad as the other two. It's still bad, that's why it's up here. But every problem it has, the other two had them and they were worse. I mean, hell, the first one was so bad with how it tried to romanticize Christian Grey being a creepy stalker. I believe my exact words were, it's the only movie this year that can actually harm our society as a whole. But this one is kind of like seeing that old school bully now washed up and just hanging out in a bar all day, just mumbling incoherently to themselves. They're still bad, but they've lost that fire that made them crazy, so now they're just kind of sad and boring. Number 6, Gotti. Ah yes, the movie that helped kill MoviePass. How could it not be on the list? I had heard the bad reviews. I had heard this was one of only 2 movies this year to get a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes, but I actually went into it ready to look for the positives, because I actually didn't really know anything about John Gotti. So I thought to myself, you know what? Even if this movie is terrible, I'll still learn something about him. I'll at least get that out of this. But this movie is so incomprehensive. I left knowing less about John Gotti than ever. How do you do that? How do you make a biopic that leaves me completely confused about the person you're biopicking? There will be scenes where someone dies or there's an explosion, and then when you get to the next scene, you have no idea what that was in relationship to. At the end of this film, they try to paint Gotti as being a hero that everyone looked up to. And I was sitting there thinking, the only thing I know you did was shoot a guy outside of a restaurant. I understand nothing else about your life, and now you want me to cheer for you? By the way, if you're an Italian American, I am so sorry that this movie exists, because this film was written by someone who clearly hates Italian Americans. These are the worst Italian stereotypes I've ever seen in a movie. This is an actual scene from the film.
Why don't you go get some ice cream, pizza,
I don't
something?
like ice cream.
Get fudge sticks. You love fudge sticks. Get
I
that.
don't like pizza either.
How about the movies? You like? What's that movie you like so much? About spaghetti, meatballs, or something?
Go see the movie about spaghetti and meatballs. Someone wrote that. Number 5, Winchester. Little history lesson for you guys. Sarah Winchester, heiress to the Winchester rifle fortune, suffered from mental issues that caused her to believe the ghost of the people killed by Winchester rifles were going to come for her, so she had a giant mansion built with traps and twisting hallways to escape them. She forced people to work day and night on this monstrosity, causing many people to die during the construction of this building. For years, people have wondered why no one has turned that into a movie, either as a biopic or as a horror film. Well, this year we finally got the Winchester film, and I regret ever asking for this to be made. There are few things that are as uniquely upsetting as having a great premise for a film be completely wrecked. But what made this a wreck? Well, for one, this movie has no chill. It has no sense of suspense. It is nothing but jump scares from the second you get to the mansion. And I'm not entirely opposed to jump scares, but these are jump scares where a scary spooky thing says boo, then it's instantly gone. It's that over and over again. Here's a little tip on making jump scares. The jump scare is only scary if the thing that scares you sticks around. If it disappears after it jumps out at you, then there's nothing to worry about. It's just annoying. And that's every scare in this movie repeated ad nauseum. But also, the thing that honestly ticked me off the most is they say Sarah Winchester was building this house to provide a home for the ghost killed by the rifles, because she's a good guy in all this. In fact, at the end of this movie, She says she's going to keep building this house and we're supposed to cheer her on. I repeat, this was based on a mentally disturbed woman who worked people to their death. This movie would still have made this list even if it wasn't based on anything real, but asking us to applaud something very tragic in the real world, that gets you a big you. Number 4, Robin Hood. This one almost didn't make the list because it was so forgettable. But in the end, yeah, I can't deny how bad this was. First off, who was asking for this? Secondly, who put this much money into a movie no one was asking for? And third, do these people know what Robin Hood is? This movie wanted to take Robin Hood and modernize it, while keeping it in ye olde England, and it creates this world where nothing fits together. You see Robin fighting in the Crusades, but they dress everyone up and shoot the scenes like it's a Call of Duty cutscene, like this is now a modern military film, but everyone is still using bows and arrows, so it just looks ridiculous. And once he actually becomes the Hood, it's just Batman. 100% a Batman ripoff. It is such a Batman ripoff that at the end of this film, they tease the villain for the next film, and it's just Two-Face. They aren't even trying to hide it. This movie took several ideas that didn't work, tried to cram them into a Robin Hood film, and it became the cinematic equivalent of watching a square peg get crammed into a round hole for 2 hours. Number 3, Dark Crimes. And now we come to the other film that got a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes this year. And I will start off by saying, I applaud Jim Carrey for trying something so different, and honestly, he did a solid job with what he was given. But all the dark, grizzled staring off into the distance in the world couldn't save this movie. This is a murder mystery that really wants to push how dark it can get, but what it ended up creating feels like the type of movie that I would have made back in high school when I was a dark, angsty nerd who knew nothing about movies and really wanted to be taken seriously. Every line of this film trying to be deep and mysterious just comes off as hot air. It's shot like the director doesn't understand the importance of an establishing shot, and the twists throughout the film make zero sense because either they aren't set up at all, or they are so mind-bogglingly stupid that of course you didn't see it coming, because who in their right mind would do something like that? Number 2, Holmes and Watson. Bad dramas can be funny. Bad horror films can be funny. Bad action films can be funny. But bad comedies aren't funny. Nothing is quite as uncomfortable to sit through as a bad comedy, and this was easily the worst comedy of the year. I didn't get a single chuckle out of this entire film, as it was loaded with satire that tried to be topical but actually felt so dated. I'm not entirely sure this wasn't written a decade ago. Seriously, they make fun of pay-per-view TV in here. I haven't seen jokes about that since the 90s. Sherlock Holmes himself is completely unlikable in this film, and I know that that's supposed to be a joke. You're supposed to laugh at what a dick he is, but because nothing in this film is funny, you're now just kind of stuck next to this complete horse's ass for the entire film. It's like being stuck next to someone on a bus who won't shut up the entire ride, and then they ask you to find the humor in that. But look, I'll be real with you guys. There's really only so many ways that I can say it just wasn't funny, but there are so many jokes in here that weren't just not funny, they were sad. There's a running joke of Will Ferrell eating an onion, and yeah, they just really thought that was going to work. And it didn't. And the first time they did it, it got an eye roll out of me and a little groan, but that was it. However, every single time that came back after that, I just shook my head and said, "Come on, brother. You know this isn't any good. You know this joke doesn't work. You didn't have to bring this back. What are you doing, man?" And that's kind of how I felt about every joke in this movie. As bad as this was, it never made me mad, and honestly, that's even worse because I was mad at Melissa McCarthy in Life of the Party because I knew she could do better. But here, yeah, I'm sorry, but after sitting through so many years of bad Will Ferrell films, there was nothing in this film that could make me angry because nothing in it was worth getting angry about. Which honestly is kind of even worse. Although, that being said, nothing against pure white-hot rage over a movie, because at number 1 is a film that was a first for us. It was the first time we ever had to review a movie twice because it was so bad, I had to go back and check and make sure that I wasn't exaggerating it. I had to make sure it actually was that bad. I'm sure you all know what it is at this point. At number 1, Slender Man. Listen, we did 2 reviews on this thing because, as I said, I had to actually be sure that it was as bad as I remembered it. So I don't even know what I have left to say about this film, but just to get it all out of my system one last time, this movie was a cash grab off of an old internet meme that was hoping to take advantage of the fact that the Slender Man was in the news again because of a murder that was inspired by it, so it's already got one foot in the how dare you side. But even as far as greedy cash grabs go, this thing is cheap, poorly thought out, and dripping with the scent of nobody cared. Do you need a spooky hallway for your movie? Just use the hallway you were just in and hope that nobody notices. Do you need some creepy art of the Slender Man? Well, you could pay any of the hundreds of talented artists out there who have already created really chilling art on their own of him. Or you could whip something up in MS Paint in 5 minutes. How does the Slender Man possess or attack people? Well, there's all this lore and myths and legends that you could build on. Nah, let's just rip off The Ring, but make it look cheaper. You know, maybe it would be a good idea to put in here some footage of other people who have encountered the Slender Man. Maybe we should get, I don't know, those Marble Hornet guys. That would be a nice little shout out to the Slender Man community out there. Nah, you know what? My kid knows what the Slender Man is, and he's got a camera on his phone, so let's just have him put something together. These people didn't even bother to light the sets. All lighting in every scene comes from natural sources, which means if you're in a dark, spooky hallway with no lights on, there's no lights on. You literally won't be able to see what's happening in the scene. And don't even get me started on the dialogue, which was written for teenagers by people who clearly hate teenagers. This movie was a failure on every conceivable level, so there was no way it wasn't going to be my worst movie of 2018. Well, you know what? Now that I got all that out of my system, I feel so much better. So let me know what your least favorite movies of the year were, or if you want something to be a big pick-me-up and let you guys know that I actually do appreciate good movies out there, then go ahead and click on the card that's popping up right now to watch our best movies of the year. And if you want to see more movie reviews from us, we do them every single weekend on this channel, so make sure that you click that subscribe button and ring that bell so you know when those go up. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Come back next time.